A beautiful young mother mysteriously vanishes in the middle of the night.
Diana didn't have any enemies.
Her worried family wonders where on earth Diana could be.
Not one person has heard anything from Diana. That just is not right.
And then an anonymous phone call pierces the family's heart.
The tip came in of the fact that Diana Rojas's remains were buried somewhere in the desert.
Now, police in Long Beach, California are no longer looking for Diana Rojas. They're searching for her body.
This went from a missing persons report to an active homicide investigation.
27-year-old Diana Rojas had a big heart and an even bigger family, with 11 doting sisters and brothers.
She was always one to want to help and care.
But her mom, Bertha, says the light of Diana's life was her 2-year-old daughter, Mercedes.
Her daughter was her world. She didn't love her daughter, she adored her.
According to Detective Mark Beagle, just about the only person Diana ever had any trouble with was her estranged husband, Americo Rojas.
Americo and Diana were going through a very, very volatile divorce.
Americo was a combat engineer with the 58th Cavalry stationed at Fort Irwin in the desert about 160 miles outside of Long Beach. His job? Operating big diggers and bulldozers.
There was also a custody issue in regards to Mercedes. The courts at that time had given Americo Rojas custody every other weekend when he was away on leave.
Diana's mom says her daughter was terrified every time Americo took little Mercedes.
When she gave her to him, she would always get nervous. She got tense, sad.
So Diana decided to fight for full custody. She even took a job at a local church to help pay for mounting legal bills.
Diana Rojas was in no means a wealthy person. She worked to afford to hire a private attorney to go to court once a month, twice a month, to show the judge that she wanted full custody.
The church where Diana worked also doubled as a women's shelter. She often helped battered mothers. Diana's co-workers say she lived in constant fear of her husband.
Many of the staff from time to time that worked here would actually hear him on the phone when he called her from time to time, screaming and yelling and threatening to hurt her. She had once told us that he had broken her arm and that she had a restraining order against him.
Crime Watch Daily has obtained that restraining order that's never been revealed to the public before. In it, Diana makes these chilling allegations, claiming Americo assaulted her, stalked her, and at one point stating he grabbed my arm and forced me to himself against my will. He said, "Hug me and kiss me." I told him, "Leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with you." She also claimed he had a history of violence and drunkenness. He owns 3 firearms. Because he is a violent and angry man, I am fearful for my life and the life of my 2-year-old daughter. Americo has never been charged with any crime related to the alleged abuse in the restraining order. But Diana's love life seemed to be getting better. She'd fallen head over heels for a man she met at the church where she worked, David Howard, who happened to be the pastor's son.
My son David was deeply in love with Diane. I sincerely believe they would have been married had this not happened.
What happened on that Friday night now haunts the pastor's son. Diana was ordered to turn over little Mercedes to her dad for his court-appointed weekend visitation. As part of their living arrangement, Americo paid for 2 condos inside this complex, one for Diana and Mercedes, the other he shared with his sister when he was on leave from the Army. At around 7 p.m., Diana walked across the courtyard and handed Mercedes over to Americo. Bertha says her daughter was more upset that night than usual.
I told her, "Daughter, everything is going to be okay." I didn't think that that would be the last time I saw my daughter.
According to police, Diana then had a date with David. The pastor's son tells police he left Diana's condo around midnight after she fell asleep on the sofa. He says he vividly remembers locking the door behind him. It's the last time anyone ever sees Diana Rojas.
I remember being at home, asleep in my bedroom, and I hear commotion. And it's David, and he's saying that Diana is nowhere to be seen, and she didn't show up to work.
Police search Diana's apartment. They find a small amount of Diana's blood on the sofa and something very bizarre. A bandana soaked in what cops believe to be urine. Adding to the mystery, there was no forced entry, and Diana's black pickup truck is also missing. The investigators on scene that day conclude the young mom simply took off. The detective working the case now is puzzled by that.
I just don't buy it.
Detective Beagle doesn't believe Diana left that night of her own free will.
All of the people that we've contacted, everybody says that she would not have just walked away from Mercedes and left her behind.
And something else didn't add up.
It's what happened to the car. The car leaves a paper trail, and it has not been seen, not a scent of it at all. That strikes me as odd.
So Long Beach detectives question everyone.
The boyfriend, David Howard, was spoken to, along with Diana Rojas's husband, or ex-husband, America Rojas, along with various other co-workers. And each of them accounted for their whereabouts at the time she went missing.
Every single person has an alibi. And with that, Diana's case sadly goes ice cold.
It's kind of hard to keep hope, but you just pray to God and believe that one day we'll get closure.
Then not days, not weeks, but years later, an anonymous tip from a male caller turns this cold case desert hot.
They said it's homicide, and they said her body may be buried in the desert somewhere.
The search for missing young mom Diana Rojas has taken a very dark turn.
They said it's homicide.
An unidentified man calls Long Beach, California police claiming Diana is not missing. She's been murdered.
We had an anonymous tip that came in regards to where the remains of Diana Rojas was buried.
Detective Mark Biggle says the caller gives specific details about where to find Diana's body. He tells cops she's buried on the outskirts of Ridgecrest, a tiny town outside of LA near the Mojave Desert.
There's no way to figure out who it is that made the call in. So to do our due diligence, since it's his anonymous tip, and it was leading down that road of it looks good, we needed to check it out.
Long Beach police officially reopened Diana's cold case file with a tall task, trying to figure out who would want the young mother dead and why.
At that time, there was no key suspect. Of course, they were looking at one person in particular, David Howard, because he was the last one to see her alive.
David Howard was Diana's new boyfriend, and her brother Solomon also believes it had to be someone close to her who took his older sister.
Whoever did this to her, in my opinion, had to be someone she knew. Someone she knew, someone who knew about her.
Detective Beagle begins searching for a connection between Diana and the town of Ridgecrest. Then it hits him. Ridgecrest is directly across the desert from Fort Irwin.
Her husband, America Rojas, was at that time a member of the United States Army, who was also living at Fort Irwin.
Americo, an Army engineer, just happened to operate earth movers and diggers. And remember, the tipster told cops Diana's body was buried in the desert, and her black pickup truck was missing. And this was a couple going through a nasty divorce and a bitter custody battle over their young daughter, Mercedes. But Americo had an alibi for the night Diana disappeared. He told police he was at his sister's with his daughter. He has never been named a suspect in Diana's disappearance. But something still doesn't sit quite right with Detective Beagle. So he began to dig a little deeper. And there are three things that have really raised his suspicions. Cops claim Americo had been trying to take out a $300,000 life insurance policy on Diana after she had gone missing. Then police say they can no longer confirm Americo's alibi that he was inside his apartment with his daughter. But the most alarming red flag, detectives say an Army buddy told his superiors at Fort Irwin that Americo often bragged cops would never find Diana. And Detective Beagle says with that information and the fact that her ex operated earth movers, he now believes Diana's missing pickup truck is buried with her in the Mojave Desert.
The vehicle has never been turned up.
But finding Diana's body and any buried clues in the middle of the desert, even if she was inside her pickup, would be like searching for a needle in a haystack.
We went out to Ridgecrest, and we noticed the area that was given us from this anonymous caller was a very large swath of desert. She could have been buried anywhere in this swath.
But there was one last shot. The world's premier forensic investigators, a Colorado-based company called NecroSearch.
They do volunteer work for police departments in order to find clandestine graves.
NecroSearch uses satellite imaging and cadaver dogs to sniff out bodies no one else seems to be able to find.
We sent them these satellite images, and they sent me back a picture with 11 anomalies.
Anomalies are geographic changes that can only be detected by satellite imaging. So theoretically, if someone buries a body or a truck, a satellite map would look noticeably different from one day to the next.
I then went out to this one area, and they kind of gave me a checklist of what to look for in this area. I was able to kind of narrow down the 11 anomalies to 5 anomalies. So I brought out cadaver dogs. We ran them through their processes, and 3 of the cadaver dogs showed interest on the one anomaly that NecroSearch basically said would be the best one out of all of them.
But what's unearthed turns out to be more heartbreak for the already devastated family.
There was nothing.
Americo Rojas still owns a home in Long Beach. He's cut off all ties with Diana's family. They haven't seen the 2-year-old since Diana went missing 16 years ago.
She was raised by her father, and today she's 18 years old.
Crime Watch Daily reached out to Americo, but he's not returned our phone calls. Police tell us he's always said he had nothing to do with Diana's disappearance, and he's never been charged. Detective Beagle still believes Diana is buried somewhere out there in the Mojave Desert. Her family spends every day hoping this will be the day police find her and bring her home.
You never forget, but you just find a way to, just kind of keep going forward. But it's just, you always are looking to get closure.